lights on. It's July 4th, 1990.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Tofte.
Ow.
Hello, Mr. Tofte.
Hello.
I want you to tell me all the names of your sisters and brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember them?
Oh, yeah.
All the names?
Oh, sure. My oldest.
Now, your father was married twice.
Yeah.
His first wife died, and where did she die? In Tofteborg?
Yeah, Tofte walk.
Norway, yeah.
You know where that is?
Yes. Remember we were there?
Yeah.
And then he had how many children by her?
Well, I'll tell you, not Tofte walk. Tofte walk is where the steamship stopped, you know. But do you call it the T-O-F-T-E, Tofte?
Tofte, okay.
Right. That's
The island.
That was on the island.
Uh-huh.
But there was a farm of, there must be 6 or 7 farms there, you know. The farms, something, they probably 4 or 5 acres or something like that at the most, you know. And so that was my father's, she died, I don't know what she died from, I have no idea what she died from. I don't remember, she died in childbirth, I don't know, that could well be. A lot of people back in them days died in childbirth. But anyway, the oldest son was Elling.
From the first marriage?
Yeah, his name was Elling. And he went to sea, like everybody else did. That's the only way you can get a job is to go to sea. So he...
Did he ever marry?
Oh, yes.
Oh, he married.
He had a bunch of kids. Must have had 1, 2, about 8, I guess.
Oh, really? They all lived in Norway?
The kids?
Yes.
No, I'm talking about Elling's children.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
They all lived in Norway?
all lived in Norway.
And then who was next?
Well, then Maria, she, her husband died at sea, and she only had one boy. And I guess he went to sea and never returned. Because there's a lot of that happened, you know. You know, he had one hell of a life at sea, and believe me, there was no rules or regulations, no unions, no nothing, you know. And he done whatever he felt like with the people. He was like slaves.
So that was 3 children?
No, there was 2.
No, there was 3.
There was Elling
Yeah.
and Maria.
Oh, okay.
And then it was, what was next?
There was Mike that we met in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think Mike was 3rd. Mike. He had no children, Mike did. He came back to Norway to marry some girl that he knew, you know, and that marriage didn't turn out at all, you know. So he got sick of the whole thing, went back to the United States, and he married somebody, and that's when Mike was in Chicago, remember?
No, we went to visit him, yeah.
Yeah. No, that was the 3rd one. And of course, the 4th one was Anna. Anna is the one that she lived in Morris, Illinois. And but when you went over and stayed with that girl, Evelyn, I think I went over and stayed with my sister Anna, didn't
I don't know, I stayed with Sturts and you stayed with, someone else.
I? Yeah.
It may have been her.
But Mike didn't have no children. Didn't have none with the second wife either. But you remember the second wife, of course, you stopped in Chicago, remember?
Yes, yes.
Huh?
She was a little tiny woman.
Yeah, little
Yes,
tiny woman.
yes. So then Anna had how many children?
Um, oh yeah, she had 2 children. She had 2 girls. 2 girls. One
Now,
in-
did she marry in Norway at all, or did she
No,
come,
no.
how'd she get to how'd she get to the United States?
oh,
Anna,
Anna?
yes.
Oh. They come to the United States when I was born. I know that was in 1904. They came to the United States.
Now, did she come with her husband to be, or?
No, she came with, when the immigration back then days was entirely different, you know, it was much easier to get in and out of the United States, you know, they made a lot of laws since then, you know.
Restrictions, yeah.
So that was Ellen, Maria, Mike, and
Anna.
Anna. That's 4. And Anna had 2 children, 2 girls. I still get a card from one of them. And the other one died. The youngest one died.
And they lived in Morris, Illinois?
Yeah, they lived in Mars. And you must know, remember her. I get a card from
I talked to her on the telephone one time. She was so nice.
yeah, oh yeah.
Her
yeah.
daughter was supposed to bring her to Florida that year.
Yeah, oh yeah,
That's
right.
right, yes.
And then she was so disappointed that she didn't, that they,
Someone got sick, or there was some reason they couldn't come down.
yeah.
So there was 4 children by your first,
Oh, no, there's one more.
Oh, is there another?
One he called Sinova. She was, she never did get married. And she was she was the youngest. And somehow or another, she died when she was, maybe in her 20s. I don't know what happened, but then she died. And so there was 5 children with the first marriage. And with the second marriage, Tony was the oldest. They call him Tony, but they call him Tony here, but his name was Anton. A-N-T-O-N.
That's a pretty name, Anton.
Anton.
Yeah.
What should I say? When he went to the United States when he was about, I don't think he was over 18. And he came to Anna. Anna was married then, and he went to work for her husband. Anna's husband was he was a widower, and he had 2 children of his own. And then he had 2 with Anna, you know, 2 girls. And he worked on farms and different things, and along come the First World War, and he went out to Cheyenne, Wyoming, to play horses. He played horses for the war. You know, back them days, you know, you had to have
The cavalry.
well, you had the cavalry.
Yeah.
I haven't got that now, you know. I don't know what took the place of it, but they...
Probably the automobile.
Oh, it was all tanks and everything
Yeah.
else that you didn't have back then days. And then the oldest girl It was Bertha, Bertha.
Oh, you're talking about Tony went out to,
Yeah, oh yeah.
oh, I see.
No, Bertha was younger than Tony, Anton, and she, what was I going to say?
Well, Tony, came to, well, he was in Canada too, wasn't he?
Well, that was later, that was later.
Oh, did he go back to Norway and then
Yeah.
came back to Canada?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he did. So he made a couple of trips back to the United States.
Oh, sure. And then he passed the,
Then he came and he
over
lived
the-
with you for a while.
the what?
Then he lived with you for a while and
Yeah.
worked in East Mauritius.
And then he went to Eastport.
Yeah. Then he went back to Norway. How old
Then-
was he when he got married?
Oh, he was in 40.
Oh, really?
or
And then
so.
he had Austri, the only child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Christina, you remember Christina?
His wife,
His wife?
yes.
She was a nice person. But she was so in love with me, she said, it's unreal.
Did she tell you that when you went back to Norway?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And,
See, that's what made you rejuvenate her, because she was so terribly sick with cancer. Remember when we went over there?
yeah. Yeah, no, she's, well, I saw her when I was back there in 46, you know, and I used to sit out in the kitchen in the old house and talk about different things, and that's when she told me that she was always had been in love with me, ever since he was a kid. And I didn't know. And, oh, I tell you, she was a very nice person.
She came
And
from a nice
you must-
family too.
You must have known her family.
Well, we met when we were over there in 80. Wasn't it 80 we were there?
Yeah, and
1980?
the oldest one, Christina was the oldest, and then there was Olga. She lived in Bergen, and he was a very, he was a builder, you know, carpenter, and he
Oh, are you talking about Olga's husband?
Olga's
Yeah,
husband.
yeah. Well, now let's get back now. Who was the next one after Tony?
Well, Bertha come after Tony,
Okay.
and then
She-
Andrea.
No,
was another
well, now
girl.
Bertha had how many children?
Bertha had no children.
Oh, she had no children.
And Andrea, of course, she had 4 children. She was the third one. She was married to what was his name?
Jorgensen or
Not Berger, first the oldest one.
Jack,
Jack, yeah. Jack was the oldest.
and then Berger.
No.
There was a sister,
And then the sister, Iris.
Iris. Okay.
And then
Berger.
Berger,
Oh, there were 3 children.
4.
Oh.
And then there was the girl that had them pretty girls with the white hair.
No,
Blonde.
that was Iris's daughter.
No,
Those were Iris's daughters.
no. But anyway,
Those were Iris's daughters, and they had blonde hair. And then when we were back there in 1980, they were mothers. Remember, they had cute little.
yeah, some 2 beautiful little girls.
Yeah,
you know.
but I think those were Iris's children. They weren't. They weren't Andreas's children.
Yeah, Andrea had 2 girls and 2 boys.
Well, who would be the other girl then?
Judith. Her name was Judith.
Judith. I know. Where'd we meet her?
Huh?
Where'd we meet Judith? There was Iris and Judith. I know they were very close
Yeah.
because they always used the 4 of them used to go everywhere. But which
Oh,
one
yeah,
was
we
Judith?
used to go back to Helgeson to visit
Yes,
them, you know.
yes.
And what you call this,
Oh, so there was,
Judith's husband's name was Knut. Knut, and he used to work on these whaling ships.
we met Canute, yes,
Huh?
that's right, we met Canute.
You know, remember
Sure,
Knut?
we met him, sure.
Yeah. And
So then, who
Yeah.
was after Andrea?
Judith,
No, after Andreas, who,
well, Berger.
oh, no, no, no. Andreas was your sister, wasn't she?
Andrea was my sister.
Yes, and she had 2 girls and 2 boys?
Yeah,
Okay. Iris and Judith and Jack and Berger?
Yeah.
Okay. Then who was after Andreas?
There was a boy named Board, B-A-A-R-D, Board. And he got
TB, I think you said.
TB of the march of the boom. And he must have been about 10, 12 years old when that happened. And the doctor says that we have to remove his leg to save his life. And my father says, no, my father went right into the hospital and he wouldn't release him, you know, wouldn't release him. My father went in there, took him right out of bed. And he brought him out and he says, nobody's going to cut any leg off of any of my kids. Nobody. And he didn't either. Well, you know, as luck may have it, he got better. He got better. And they opened up his leg all the way from the knee, all the way to the hip. And he drilled into the bone and saw what he could do with in the marge, you know, that's what his problem was. And that's what he treated. And but he kept getting better and better. And then I remember that he broke out in different parts of his body with big sores. But after a while they healed him. And he got to where, well, he wore crutches for a long time. And he got to where he didn't even have to use the crutches anymore.
Didn't he like to ride horses?
Huh?
Didn't he like to ride horses?
Oh yeah. Well, they said that that's how he got hurt. Whether that's so or not, nobody knows.
Could have fallen off a horse?
He fell. He used to go up. When we lived, there was a pasture right above there, you know. I don't remember. You don't even.
Well, it just changed. It wasn't the same, you said. There was like a big falls up in the area there, but...
Yeah, but what it was, what should I say? Well, he must have been about, I guess 10, 12 years old, and he used to see, he used to love horses, you know, and he used to, and the horses was very tame. And he goes up there and he pet him and he feed him carrots, anything he can get a hold of, you know.
Were they wild horses?
Huh?
Were they wild horses?
No, he was there on pasture, you know.
Oh, I see.
And he was,
Oh, did they belong to someone else?
oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And he goes up there and don't you think that he got one of them, led him up to a stone there, and he got on the horse and the horse, the pony, hell, he wasn't a horse. He couldn't have been over a year old, maybe a little bit more. Yeah. And he threw them off.
Oh.
And he hit him up against a rock, and for the longest time he couldn't even walk. Hit his hip, you know, up against this rock.
Well, if that was TB, I don't think that could have caused the TB.
Well, they thought that maybe so, or maybe it wasn't that.
Yeah.
But that was just a pure guess.
So how old was he when he died?
He his 30s.
Oh, he lived that long.
Oh,
And he had his leg all that time,
Oh, yeah.
really?
And the whole sores that broke out in different places, they healed up.
Uh-huh.
And but he didn't die from that at all. He died from pneumonia. He got a cold, bad cold, he died from pneumonia. And evidently, he didn't have enough resistance.
Now, he never married?
No.
Never married?
No. That was born. And then, of course, I came along.
Gus was younger than you? I thought you were the baby.
No.
Oh.
No, Gus was younger than me.
Oh.
And Olaf was younger than Gus, you know.
Oh,
There was
okay.
2 of them younger than me.
Oh, okay. So then it was you. Now, what year were you born?
1904,
Yeah. January
January
31st, 1904.
Yeah. And then Gus came along. And Gus and I was very close, more so than anybody else. We were 2 years apart. And I always was the strong one of the two, you know. Gus was always very weakling-like, you know. And everybody was going to beat him up, and I always took his part, you know. So he was...
Well, you were the older brother. You
Yeah,
know.
and I tell you, he always looked to me, you know, for being something special, you know. And I guess in his way he was thinking I was. And of course,
So then you had 3 children,
yeah,
3, and Gus had, how many did Gus have?
and we had Arno was the oldest, Keith, Harold, that's 3, Gail, 4, Neil, 5. And 5 kids. And
Well, you never had any boys. Do you feel bad about that?
I don't think so.
No?
Listen,
Your name isn't going to be carried over in the United States as far as a family. But you know, your name with your business is going to go on for a long, long time.
well, I think that's one of the reasons why I felt very special about that name being carried on, you know.
Yes. All right, so now we go on to the last one.
What was that?
Who was the last child in your family?
Well, that was Olaf.
Oh.
Olaf, he was sickly from the time he was born almost, you know. He had all kinds of ailments, one right after the other. And I remember seeing me on the top of the roof. He passed out just seeing me up there, so I was going to fall down, you know. And very weak. And but he wasn't too weak to have children. I mean, my God. I tell you, he must have had 4 or 5 kids. You know. And he had no trade. He tried a little bit of everything, but no matter what he tried, it just didn't work out.
Now, did he live on the family farm or?
Who?
Olaf?
Olaf? He lived in my grandfather's place.
Now, where was that?
My mother's father.
Now, where was that?
Well, that was in Roosendaal.
That was in Roosendaal?
Well, they, I don't know if you remember going, taking a road, and no, that was the time that,
I thought it was somewhere near Ostry.
no, it was the other way. It was the other way, going through Roosendaal, and well, it would be north, going in toward the fjord, and fjord further, you know. well, actually, that was what they call Valen, Wallen. That's where she is. That's
Yes.
where the hospital is in the whole bit.
Or does it narrow or widen the fjord through Vallen?
As the fjord, as you went through the fjord, it was in and out, you know what I mean?
Oh, I see.
It was very uneven. And,
But didn't Olaf live in that area?
huh?
Didn't Olaf live in that area?
Yeah, he did. But he, you see, when my mother had, well, she had 2 brothers and 1 sister. They were all in the United States, and we all have died. But they were the oldest ones. And
So you didn't know any of your mother's
no,
side of the family?
no.
Did she ever have plans on coming to the United States with her family?
Oh no, no. She had her own kids, and she used to, she loved her kids, you know, she really did. I mean, she lived for her family, lived for her kids, really. It was a wonderful person, that's all I say. The only thing is she had no spunk at all, you know, she didn't, whatever my father said.
But
that's
don't you think that was the European
Oh yeah,
way?
oh yeah.
The man was the breadwinner and he
And
was the dominant one.
He was the king,
Yeah,
he was the king of the roost, that's all. And I think that's the way it was, yes. And
Well, now, how old was the, you know, from the first family, how old was the youngest one when they came to live with your father and his new wife? Because she inherited a whole family.
oh, I was going to say, first of all, he when they died, and my mother was the next one. She got that place, and she also got the place, the home place. You know what I mean?
Where you were born?
Yeah. No, not
No?
where I was born,
Oh.
but where Christine and Tony lived.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I see.
See that house, Tony got that.
Uh-huh,
Because my mother lived there, you know, I mean, that was her place.
uh-huh.
But then she went, the mother went, well, she stayed there, you know, and Tony got married, and they lived there. What was I going to say now?
Well, you were talking about your mother's family. They left for the United States, and then she got the 2 homesteads?
Yeah, she got the homestead.
Uh-huh,
No, but they had went to the United States years and years before that. You know.
I see.
But she got the 2 homesteads, so Olaf got one of them.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm trying to get at. She got.
That's where your mother died?
Yeah,
Yes.
and she got.
What year did she die, Daddy?
I was there in '46,
And she had had a stroke?
and she had a stroke, and she was getting a lot better. She could go up to. They had outside toilets, you know. She could go up to the toilet by herself and all that, you know. So. And she must have lived 46, 47, about a year later that.
She died?
47 she died.
So how old was she?
Oh, she was about 86, 87,
Uh-huh. And your dad died,
maybe 70.
he was 70.
Yeah.
You don't remember the year?
Oh,
He
he
died.
died quite many years before that. Let's see.
You were in the United States when that happened?
I was in the United States.
Yes.
I don't know exactly what year it was.
Now, where were they living when he died?
Huh?
Where were they living when he died?
We live in the old home place.
Which one? The one Olaf has or the one Tony had?
On Tony Hill.
Oh,
Tony was in this country too.
oh, yes. How old was Tony when he had Ostry?
He must have been in his 40s.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's a big family. And on my father's side, yeah, you know where he come from, Tofte, you know, up there in that area.
Or was it your uncle or your grandfather you said that used to row you across the fjord to go see the family? Your father's family?
Wasn't that, he had a brother, his name was Hans, H-A-N-S, Hans,
Your father?
yeah. And he used to come to visit us. He was younger than my father. And he used to come to visit us. He used to row across the fjord and come and visit different ones. He was a great one for visiting. And I can't think of it. What was I talking about anyway?
You were talking about Hans. He used to come and visit you?
Yeah.
And then what would you do? He'd take you in the boat and you row back to the
No,
island?
No, I didn't. Never did.
No?
No. But we were there. We stopped there when we went to see him. That was Hans had died in the meantime, you know.
You mean the two old men that we went to see?
Yeah.
That was your father's
That
brothers?
was his sons.
Oh, that was Hans's
That was
sons?
Hans's sons,
Oh,
yes.
I see.
Yeah. And I think she was married. She married. Well, one of the boys was married, but he had a wife there. The
Yeah.
other one was not married.
Yeah.
I think that's how it was. But he had any more children? I don't know. I don't think I think that's only 2 children he had.
So now how big of a family did your father have?
Oh, there must have been 10, 12 kids in that family.
Really? And now your father was a blacksmith. What was his father?
He was a blacksmith too.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Well, the blacksmith was quite a
oh,
man
no,
of honor, wasn't he?
Oh, sure. Because you couldn't even buy a nail. You had to make them.
I brought one of those nails back from Norway.
You did?
Yes, I found it in the barn.
How did that? Well, they're nails. Who made nails? They made hooks, you know, any hooks and eyes and hooks and stuff like that. You couldn't buy them. There was no hardware. There was no hardware store. Didn't even know didn't know it was possible that they had a saw making these things.
Now, you said something about son of the blacksmith. What was that? Was that?
Well, he used to call me Smear Bernt.
Smear Bernt?
No, Smear. That's blacksmith.
Oh, okay.
Smear Bernt. There could be other with the same name, you know, but if they brought the name, the blacksmith out first, then you know right away who to
Oh, so
talking
you
about.
were the son, Bernt, the son of the blacksmith.
Yeah, son of the blacksmith.
Oh.
Because
Was Bernt a very popular name?
Huh?
Was Bernt a very popular name when you were growing up?
No, I wouldn't say so.
No.
No. Tony was Anton. That was very popular.
Were you named after anybody? Or?
Yeah, I was named after my mother and father. I was supposed to be the last one, you know. It didn't turn out that way.
So you got, her name was Bertha,
Yeah.
and his name was,
Who?
your father's name was?
Andreas.
Andreas.
Yeah.
So they got
See,
Bernt.
my name is Andreas too. You know, Bernt Andreas Anderson Tofte. That's my full name. I got my birth certificate in there.
Uh-huh. That's a very nice name, Andreas.
Andreas.
Yes.
And of course my sister's name was Andrea.
Uh-huh.
Andrea. And Andreas.
So out of your father's side, the only one that you really knew was his brother? Did you know any of his?
No, I didn't know any of the rest.
No?
But I knew his sister. She had a sister living in Stavanger. And he had another sister living, did you ever hear about Lofoten Islands? That's way north of, what do you call it, Trondheim. Trondheim is the city, the northernmost city in Norway. And there's some islands in there that they have all kinds of birds. And the birds come there to lay the eggs in the spring of the year.
Oh, I've seen that on National Geographic.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
exactly what it is.
Yes.
That's where it came from.
Uh-huh.
And they make a living of gathering the down
Uh-huh.
from the nest. And they can't take it all, but they keep plucking it. There's no more to be plucked, you know what I mean? And then they
Now, how'd she get so far north? Did she marry someone?
oh yeah. And he owned some of this property, you know, up in the cliffs. And every year, at a certain time, they go there and pick up eggs, and they that's how they made a living.
Yes, yes.
You know.
Now, what were they called? Gruffs, or what were those birds called?
Well, eider duck, he used to call it. Eider duck.
Oh, okay.
And they had beautiful down, you know, very, very valuable
But that was
down.
it had like quite a cliff there.
Huh?
They nest in the cliffs, don't they?
Yeah. And well, a lot of people got killed climbing them cliffs,
Yes,
you know, it was a
sure.
dangerous job.
Well, didn't they come from the top of the cliff? And they had like a harness, and they
They
worked
did.
their way down?
Yeah, they did that.
Yeah. So because of not having any transportation, you weren't able to keep in contact with your family as much?
Well,
Like your father, wasn't able?
No, but I'll tell you, one thing I do remember, my father's sister sent him a box of eggs, whether it was a box, a homemade box, or whatever kind of a container it was in, I don't know. But anyway, they had this box, and with eggs in it, and I think he sent some down too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the only thing they had, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you want to make an impression or something on somebody on certain occasions, that's the only thing he could give. He had nothing else to give. But they evidently, they seemed like, I lost the track of all that they had children and all that, but I never.
Well, how old were you when you left Norway?
Huh?
How old were you when you left Norway?
Me?
Yeah. Were you?
Oh, I was 17.
Oh, you weren't.
I think I was more than 17. My birthday was in January, so I left. Well, I must have left here in October. See, no, September, October.
Uh-huh. Now, you talked about your grandfather who lived to be 100.
Yeah.
Now, whose father was that?
My mother's father.
Or was your mother's father?
He was an old sea captain.
And he was the one that always used to tell you those stories about America.
Oh yeah, sure.
Now, were you close with your mother's father and mother?
Oh yeah. But they lived over. I told you Olaf lived.
Oh.
See.
And your father and mother lived with them?
I guess he did for a while, and he built that house there, you know. You remember the house way up north there?
Is that the
Where the
one?
horses were, my brother,
Yes, in Rosendahl.
yeah,
Yes.
well, he built that house, you know. My father did, and I think in the meantime, before he built that house, he lived with my mother, with his mother and father.
Oh, I see.
And he is a very easygoing person. Uh, my grandfather was very, very easygoing. And he used to tell me the story when well, Norway had no fertilizer. There was no fertilizer factory at all, or any time. No way of getting any manure, and the only manure they had is even the people's manure. You know what I mean? They save everything they could to fertile the soil. You know, because there was just nothing. You know, there was nothing there. There was nothing in the soil to begin with. And it had to get fertilizer of some sort. And there were some islands off the coast of Chile. And on these islands there was all kinds of birds. And the droppings from go maybe hundreds of years. They've been doing the same thing, you know what I mean? And it built up to where it was a thick layer of manure. So these sailing vessels used to come in there and they load up. I don't think they paid anything for it at all. Oh, and the crew. Who's that?
They'll come in if they want to come in.
Huh?
They'll come in if they want to come in. Go ahead.
Can you imagine? They used to pick, and they call it guano, bird guano, fugler.
Well, now, who were there people that lived on the island?
No, nobody lived on these islands, only birds.
Well, now, what'd they do? Bring a crew on the ship to bring this manure back?
Yeah, bring the manure and load it in the ship. Can you imagine that? And he drove it all the way to Norway.
From Chile, South America.
Yeah, the west coast of South America. And what they did, I think, I don't know how many times we went across there, I don't know, but this one time he was telling what he told us about. And most of the crew died of the yellow fever. Yellow fever was raging, something terrific. And most of the crew died. And so he had to have natives, because it was all sails, you know. And he had to take in sails and stuff like that. And he had to do the best he could with what he had, you know. And I think he said that it took them 3 months to come from Chile around the Horn of South America. And of course, and he had they stopped in Key West because they were getting very low on water. And in Key West, he saved all the rainwater in what he called cisterns, you know, like the concrete cisterns that he made. And they saved the rainwater, come right off the roof of the house, and you know, every drop of water was a valuable thing, because there was no water in the Keys.
What year would that be?
Well, I think that was in 1835, 1840, along in there. And
What was his impression of Florida at that time?
well, I asked him about that, and he says that there was only along the coast that there was, and I says, what about the inside? Well, it had an inside to it. You know, he says, nothing but rattlesnake and alligators, crocodiles, and they're not livable, he says, in there at all. And
At that time,
at
it
that
probably
time,
wasn't.
That's the way it was.
Yes, yeah. And that's Florida,
Huh?
that's Florida that you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, Florida, he said that Florida, well, even when we bought our first land up in Fort Pierce, there was, what should I say?
Well, it was a deed.
In the deed, we have is it an abstract or whatever you call it?
That's what it was, an abstract.
They came with it, and there was a big book full, and there was a whole history of Florida, you know, whole history of Florida.
From the Spaniards?
Yeah, the time they were bought by the Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll tell you, I think my memory is very.
No, but you've been talking a lot, you've done well. So now, the family is all grown, and you decided that you wanted to be a sea captain. That was your dream.
Oh, yeah.
So when you finished,
What I was going to say, nothing that I was a great dreamer. Well, not a doer, I was a dreamer.
well, that's what Erica is, the doer and the dreamer.
Yeah.
See?
Well,
Those are the ones that make a success out of their life.
Yeah, because I thought that was important, very important, what I did. Because like I said, I only got one life to live, you know what I mean? I didn't know of any other.
But that was your boyhood dream, to be a sea captain?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Like your grandfather?
Yeah.
You didn't want to be a blacksmith like your father?
No, I wanted to be like my grandfather, all of it. But then, you know,
well, did you go to Oslo for your test?
Who?
Did you go to Oslo for your test?
No, I went to Arendal. No, not Arendal. Yeah, Berger and them live right here. Horton, not Horton either. Yeah, it was to Horton I went. Horton. Horton. They had a university, they had a testing place there, you know what I mean? Where I could go and take exams. But,
to get into school?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't get anywhere near it. And I was so damn disgusted, I tell you. I said, this is,
Well, didn't you think you should go back to school then? I mean,
Well, in fact, I did. I did, but hell, I had a long ways to go. And in the meantime, I was looking here and there, and I ran into this,
shipping office? Shipping office?
Shipping office. And they told me there was a room for me in the United States. So I said, bless your heart.
Well, you said that the ship was going to the United States.
Huh?
The ship was going to the United States?
No, I came over here as a passenger.
Oh, you did? Oh.
I was home, yeah.
You went.
I really.
Now, where did you take the ship from? From Oslo or
No.
Bergen?
No, I took the ship from Bernt. I guess it was from Bergen. But anyway.
So you went over as a passenger?
I was a passenger. And then
Do you remember the first ship, the name of the first ship that you went on?
Oh, sure. F-R-A-M, Fram.
And then you went to South America on that ship?
Yeah. And that's why I got sick, you know.
Well, you didn't get sick on the first trip, did you?
No, it was several trips.
Yeah.
And
So now, that first trip to South America, what did you carry?
Huh?
What did you cart? What did you bring back on the ship?
Asphalt.
Oh, you went into the jungles and,
No, yeah, well, yeah, I remember into the jungle, sorry.
how'd they ever get the ship up into that
Well,
cove?
there's a river similar to the Amazon, similar, but it was much smaller, you know,
Narrower?
and, and, and,
It had to be very deep to take a ship that big.
well, of course, it had to be glazed out, you know, a lot of that was glazed out on
Oh,
the
I
very
see,
end.
I see.
And it got so narrow up there that you had to back the ship around and back up.
Now tell me, were they sails or were they motors on the, were they,
The what?
how was the ship engineered? How was the ship propelled? Was it by sail or was it by?
Oh, no, them ships was regular steamers, you know.
Oh, they were steamships, I see.
Steamships.
So now, did you see the asphalt as it came out of the jungle? What did it look like?
Mud,
It was just mud?
just like mud.
And did they put it in drums or did they?
No. He had a railroad going out there. Railroad similar to the ones they used to have on the duck farms years ago. And then they, he had carts. Well, what should I say? They were V-shaped.
Almost like the coal cars then that they had in the coal mines?
Huh?
Were they like the trains they had in the coal mines?
Similar to that, but they were open on the top.
Yeah.
They were V-shaped.
Uh-huh.
And then they fit it down at the bottom, and then when he got it on ship, he took this derrick, you know what I mean, he lifted them up, and of course they would dump them right in the hull of the boat ship.
Would the bottom open or would they just turn it?
Well, you turn the thing
Oh, I
up,
see.
and the asphalt fell off.
Uh-huh.
But that asphalt, that would well, especially when it was hot, you know, it would melt and spread out, you know, spread out all over the place. So it all wouldn't go over to one side of the ship. You had to make bends in there, you know. These bends was made out of wood, you know, and make them like into squares, you know, so it didn't get a chance to shift
So
over.
it was distributed evenly, yeah.
Well, anyway, from where he dug the asphalt out of the swamp until where the ship was laying, and it must have been, and that, I'll never forget the place. This little place that they call it Guanoko. It was half-breeds, you know. They were part Indian and part Spanish and part something else. And
How about part Norwegian?
no, they were all of us on the ship.
Oh, okay.
They was all, wouldn't leave no Norwegians there. No. And that's where I had my first banana bunch.
Well, that was the first place you saw pelicans too, not pelicans.
Pelican, yeah.
No, flamingos.
Yeah, flamingos.
Flamingos.
They said I was crazy, you
They
know.
thought you were drinking too much rum.
Yeah. And he had this Jamaican rum there, I remember that. And boy, me and another guy who were two kids really, and see if who could drink the most, you know. He had one bottle and I had another.
So how old were you? How old were you?
70.
Oh.
And to see who could drink the most. Well, I'll tell you, we both dropped under the table.
You never knew who drank the most, right?
Yeah. Oh, some stupid thing like that.
So that you came back to the ship one time and told them about your pink flamingos and they thought you were drinking too much rum.
Yeah. And he said, you're crazy. And those are the things that we could, you know.
Yeah.
And he had these Well, I used to go off by myself, you know, I used to take he called it the dinghy. It's a little boat, it was not a lifeboat, we had it, I don't know what they ever used it for, but anyway.
How'd you ever get that off the boat? Or get it back on?
No, well, we had it on the side, laying on the side of the ship,
Oh,
you
I
know,
see.
and then before we left, I pulled it back on the ship.
Oh, I see.
The Tuesday guys would pick the damn thing up. Well, anyway, I went up the river and sure enough, and I went ashore. And I sort of made sure I would find my way back again, you know what I mean? I would have
Why, was it pretty,
landmark.
was it pretty dense, or was it, didn't
Well,
it have any village there?
There was big puddles of water here and there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd jump in between you know, from one thing to the other. And I noticed these down things like stone, like statues, you know. Come to find out, that's where the birds lay the eggs on the top there.
Oh, really? The flamingos?
Flamingos.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean they made that? Those were their nests?
Huh?
That was their nest?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
made them out of mud?
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that. Yes.
Well, they did that because, well, they had the water would go up and down,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And as nature would have it build it high enough that the water, sometimes it reach almost the top, but if it reached the top, it would ruin the eggs. You
Yeah,
know?
sure. So how long were you on the ships? How many years?
Oh, I was I was not even, not even 1 year, 6 months maybe, the most.
You were on the ship?
Yeah.
And that's when you got malaria?
No, that's one of the trips. I don't think I was 6 or 3 months probably. And then I got malaria, and then of course, well, we had some bad weather off the ship.
There it goes. All right. Okay. So now you were in South America. So then you said you went back to Norway? On the ship?
No. I never did go back to Norway.
Yes, you did. You said you went over to the English Channel. You were in the, you said you were in the, with the ships for about 3 years.
That was all together. I mean, you know, I went to different parts of Norway, even over to Russia. You know, like in Riga, Russia, we used to take herring and fish over there, you know, and I forget the name of the water now, the water between Sweden and, Sweden and Russia,
Uh-huh.
you know, in that area. I know what they call it in Norwegian, Östersjön, but I don't know what they call it in English. All these different countries has different names. Not like Germany. In Norwegian, that's Tyskland. In Russia, they call it Rusland. Everything is land, L-A-N-D.
So did you stay home a lot then after that voyage over to South America? And you went back to Norway, or did you, were you on the ship a lot then?
No, see,
When you came back from South America?
well, when I came back from South America, I went to the hospital.
Oh, well then
With
what?
malaria. I got malaria.
Oh, I see.
And that's when I went to, I got a job, I told you.
Yeah, but now remember you said you were coming into New Jersey and the ship caught on fire?
Yeah, we were coming in there, there was off the coast of North Carolina, that's where it was. And we were laying there,
when you'd run into a bad storm?
Yeah, that was another time, a bad storm. But there was no storm at all the night that the ship burnt up. That was hit by lightning, and then it was grounded in the storage room, and that the spark set it off because it was all oils and stuff down in the storage room there, and that's why the midship caught on fire and everything went up in smoke.
Was that in New Jersey or was that off North Carolina?
But that was off the coast of North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
And it was about 100 miles, and thereabouts, off of the coast of North Carolina. And then,
Well, were you taken off the ship in North Carolina?
no, we were, there must have been quite a ways north of, but I think...
By Cape Hatteras? Anywhere near Cape Hatteras?
Well, in that area, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's what it was. And they had what they call sand suckers. The ships that goes along there to keep the channel open.
Mhm.
Because they get filled up with sand, you know what I mean? And
From the drifting, the tides.
and you have to go along and check out that you have deep enough water for these vessels to go through. You know, you got to keep these harbors open. So that's what I did.
No, the sand suckers used to go through there.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
oh,
so now
yeah.
the ship was on fire.
Yeah, well, and then of course right after that, the fire ships, fireboat came, too. They had kind of quite a fleet of firefighters too. And they of course started in putting the fire out right away, and we were taken on board one of them sail suckers, and they treated us like kings, I'm telling you.
How big were those boats?
Sail suckers?
Yeah. I thought maybe they were like the size of those little tugboats that they have.
No, they were
A lot bigger than that?
A lot bigger than
Uh-huh.
that. And,
How many men were on the ship?
32 on our ship.
Uh-huh.
And we all fitted into one lifeboat. Because all the other 2 lifeboats on the starboard side, they burnt up, because the flame come up through and we couldn't get nowhere near it.
Oh, so you were in the life raft when the sand suckers came along and they picked you up.
Yeah. They picked us up and they took us into Grandpop in New Jersey.
All the way from North Carolina?
No, well, they were more like Virginia. What did you say the name of the place?
Cape Hatteras.
Cape Hatteras. Cape Hatteras is not in North Carolina,
No.
It's more in Virginia. Well, anyway.
It's off North Carolina.
It is?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's very treacherous water over there. And
So then how'd you get from there to New Jersey?
well, the sand sucker picked us up and brought us ashore,
Yes, yes.
And they, I don't know whether they must have taken us straight into Grandpop in New Jersey. Grandpop, yeah, South Grandpop in that area. And you could almost see the place where the ship was towed in there, after we put the fire out, they towed the ship in.
Yeah.
And we left it there to unload the asphalt, because the asphalt didn't catch a fire.
So then how'd they get you back to Norway, or didn't you go
No,
back?
I didn't go back to Norway.
You didn't?
No.
Did you have to wait for another ship?
No, I was supposed to wait until this ship that appeared,
Yeah.
and then take that. But like I said, I went ashore, and they took me out of the hospital, but I was not supposed to go back to work. So I roamed the streets, what I mean. After I had my breakfast in the morning, I roamed the streets. So I thought, well, I Norwegian Seamen's Home in this area. I come to find out where that was. It was in South Portland. And so I took the streetcar. Mind you, I couldn't speak a word of English. I couldn't ask anybody anything either. And what was I going to say?
You went to the Norwegian Sea Home?
Oh, yeah.
The Seamen's Home?
The Norwegian Seamen's Home. They have a religious church there, you know, in the whole bit. And they're there just to help the sailors, you know, have to help the seamen. Oh, I'll tell you.
So you had someone to speak Norwegian to?
Oh, yeah. Everybody there could speak.
Yeah.
And this guy came along, a kid about my age, and I told him the story. I just come out of the hospital. And he says, well, why, how would you like to have a job ashore? Me, ashore? That's the last thing I ever thought of. He says, yeah. He says, I did. And I went out on the farm upstate New York, up in Hopewell Junction. That's where he came lived, and he worked on a farm up there. I says, you can do the same thing. And you make a hell of a lot more money than you do as a fireman, you know, on board ship. So, well, I says, how do I do that? He says, I know just a place. I know there's a place where agency, you know, employment agency. He says, well, I went, and he says, I'll take you there. Sure enough, he get me on the trolley car and took me down there. And so the guy, there was a Swedish fellow, I could talk to him in Swedish, you know. And he says, you know anything about milking cows? I says, yeah, sure, I can milk cows. I got just a job for you. It was like it was cut and dried, you know. So, I did. 3 o'clock in that afternoon, I was on my way to Southern Winches, East Winches. And somebody, a taxi cab, he had a taxi cab in East Winches that time. One. It's only one I ever knew of. And he brought me in and he picked me up and he took me right to her grave station. What you call it? And I, sure enough.
Did they teach you how to drive, or did you have a license before you came to the United States?
I had a Norwegian license.
Your driver's license?
Yeah. So, but anyway, that didn't do me no good here. I had to get
You had to take a test.
Take the test. But like Helbrice's son, Harm, the oldest one, he says, you don't speak too good English. He says, anybody don't ask you any question, don't say nothing. You know what I mean? That's better.
Better than letting them know you couldn't speak English.
Yeah. So I done exactly as he asked me to do. And sure enough, I got my lesson. Chauffeur's license, no less. And I tell you, boy, I was the proudest guy in the world at the time with a chauffeur's license in the United States.
And you were how old then?
Well, this was along in the late fall, November, December, I guess. And I was in last of January, I would be 18.
So what year was that you came?
1923.
1923?
1923.
Now, how long did you stay with the Reeves family?
Oh, I must have stayed there 2, 3 years, I guess. And that's where I learned to drive to New York. I went in a couple of times as a helper, and then somebody says, one day he didn't have no drivers. He had a load to go in, they had no drivers. They didn't show up. He says, everybody says, do you think you could find your way in? I said, sure. Me? I can go anywhere. I was never afraid of anything. Sure. I went there. I lost my way a few times, but I wouldn't tell nobody because I was afraid that he wouldn't send me back, you know. But I made it fine, and then of course from then on I was a steady driver.
So then you left Herbreves, and where'd you go? Did you buy your house on Pine Street?
Yeah, I bought the land while I was working for Herbreves. I bought that land up
On Pine Street in East Merchants?
there. Yeah,
How much did you pay for it?
$100 an acre.
And how many acres did you have?
Four.
Four.
And I'll tell you, boy, then of course I'd go in chicken business, you know. I went in chicken business. Yeah. But in the meantime, I learned a lot of things about about trucks and engines and stuff like that I never knew nothing about before, you know. And by golly, the way luck would have it, when I was through there, when I was, you know, I was going to say now.
And when you left there, you knew a lot about engines.
Yeah.
So now, when did you build your house on Pine Street?
That was some story. I built that. Well, of course, I had a clear enough land, and I used to go up there and cut down shrubs and on Sunday and holidays, weekends. I never had no time for no fun or anything like that. I used to go out there and sit in the woods, and I used to say, and this is all mine. Every turf, every stick, they're mine. You know, that was something. You know, that was mine. And you know, I was so proud of it.
I bet you were.
Huh?
You had every right to be. So now, how long was it before you got married?
27.
Or 4 years later?
Yeah, about that.
4 years later.
Oh, I'm telling you. And Herbreves used to give me all kinds of. Don't take out a police girl, because if you take out a police girl, boy, you see it gets you in trouble, you know. And boy, he was taking care of me. Herbreves used to take care of me like he was his own son. I don't think he ever took care of his son like he took care of me. No, I tell you, well, it's a long story. In the fall, he used to buy apple from upstate, and then all winter long we were peddling apples. Well, there was apples. There was a cellar used for incubator cellar over across the street from Herbreves, and how did I go again? Yeah, right across from Herbreves had that incubator cellar, and there was apples in there. And they used to, on rainy days and bad days, they used to go up there and sort the apples out, you know. Go through the whole barrels, pick out the rotten ones and all. And one of the guys, they didn't like me too well. They didn't like no greenhorns anyway. And he left the rotten apples go and hit me in the face. with it. And well, I tell you, boy, I just did I didn't. I went up there and I grabbed that guy and I held him down, and he says, you, and I learned a few words, you know. And he says, don't do that, you'll go and kill him. You'll go and kill him. So I let go of him. And I says, you ever do that again to me, boy, I'll go and kill you. And I meant every word of it. And I'm telling you, I was going to say something, I forgot what it was.
So did Herb Reeves help you buy that land on Pine Street?
No, I took so much out of my pay. I was getting only $45 a month. Then I was going to go out to Chicago to Mike's. He says, you can't stay there by yourself. He says, come out here out in Chicago and I'll get you a job out here. I said, I can't do that. So I went out there. So I didn't. I keep forgetting what I was going to say.
Well, now, did Herb Reeves point out this piece of land on Pine Street for you? Or who helped you get that piece of?
No, there was some friend of his that owned that land, you know.
Is that where the bypass is now?
Yeah.
They took that piece of property?
Yeah. Well, they have there was no road going through there at that time,
That's
you know.
right.
There's only a short distance.
Yeah.
And there was Pine Street going north and south. And there was nothing, you couldn't turn in there or anything like that. And, well, anyway, and then I started, I went to Chapman. I didn't have the money to do it with, but he says that anything you want, you get. So I had somebody tell me what to buy and so forth and so on. I didn't know nothing about building anything either. I remember putting shingles on, and I nailed it any old place, you know. You're supposed to nail a shingle so that you put the shingle on and the next one covers the nail holes, you know. Okay? But I put the nails in any old place, you know, and just stay there, that's all.
That's right, we didn't know.
And,
so what did it do, rain inside?
No, well, no, it didn't rain. I don't know why, but it was fairly good.
How big was your house that you built?
2 rooms. I had everything I built was 12 by 24. Well, anyway, and then.
So how old were you then?
Oh, about 20, 21. I was 23 when I got married. 23. And I'm telling you, there was a lot of water then over the dam, believe me.
So how many chickens did you raise in your chicken farm there?
I think I had about 500, 500 laying hens. And then do you remember Richard Klein? Richard?
Well, his father.
Huh?
His father.
Well, his father, you know, when he saw you could tell right away, you know, there's the smoke coming out of the thing in the chimney. There's a coal fire. Smoke isn't supposed to come out of there, you know. And he knew then he knew right away then that I let the fire go out during the night.
Oh, yeah. In your chicken house?
Yeah. And well, for the babies, you know, baby
wow.
chicks. And he says, you can't make it. You can't. There's no way you can make out that way.
Well, he had been raising chickens?
Huh?
He had been raising chickens?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I bought this baby chick from him.
Oh.
And I'm telling you, he was over to my place, and I thought to myself, well, don't the hell, don't you watch your own business?
Mind
you
your
know?
own business, yeah.
But he wanted to make sure that I done the right thing, you know what I mean?
Well, you didn't realize that if the fire went out, they would die.
No, I didn't know nothing. And well, things got bad. Things got bad.
Were you working? Did you have a job?
Well, that's what I was going to tell you. Then I worked with these, you know, I worked with the trucks and stuff and that, the heavies, and of course, then
Didn't you go working for
and I went
Sweezy's?
to a friend home.
Well, didn't you work for Sweezy's too? Was that
Oh,
before?
that was later, way
That was later.
Oh, yeah, that was after I was married, long after I was married. And, oh, I tell you. But I never gave up. I never gave up. Somehow or another, I had a driving.
You were a dreamer.
I was a dreamer,
Yeah.
and I stopped being a dreamer and got to be a doer. You know?
Yeah. You knew the combination was the right thing to do.
There was a lot of good times, but there was a lot of bad ones too.
But nobody else had it good at that time either, did they? It was hard times. Now, when you came to East Merges, was the roads paved? Did it have, asphalt on the roads?
You know, the first roads I remember of there was made out of oyster shell, and they were paved down. You know, when they rolled
Well,
in.
now, was that like Montauk Highway?
Yeah. So,
When did they pave that?
oh hell, that was back in the 20s, late 20s.
Oh, really?
They paved that road.
And they used to have the old hard rubber tires, didn't
Oh, sure, that's all we ever had.
they? Must have been an awful bumpy road,
Oh,
a ride.
I'm telling you, they were bumpy. And then the tires seemed like they were on one spot, and every once in a while, every time that they hit that spot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'm telling you, 15 miles an hour, top speed. Anywhere between 12 and 15 miles an hour.
How many hours did it take you to get to New York City?
6 hours, one way. Oh, I tell you. But it was all adventure. It was all a great adventure. You know?
Well, you were in your 20s.
Oh yeah. Boy, and everything was just nothing but a great adventure, the whole thing.
So did you ever make your chicken farm a success, or?
No. I tell you, I got to where I couldn't pay my bills. I couldn't pay the feed bill, and
500 chickens eat a lot of feed,
they ate a lot of feed.
plus the hay, straw you needed.
The what?
You needed straw.
Yeah. No, but oh yeah, that was after I met your mother. That's like true. And so then what happened? What did I do now? Lost track.
Well, there's so much to remember
Yeah.
when you go back in time. Now, you were talking about you were in debt. You owed a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, then I went to Chapman, and he told me that I could pay him just so much a month or whatever I could pay him.
Well, how about your feed bill?
And the same thing with feed. I owed the feed bill. I didn't get that paid. But anyway, I went to.
Did you keep your chickens?
Hmm?
Did you keep the chickens?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you did? How long did you have that chicken ranch?
Oh, 2-3 years, I guess.
Uh-huh.
But then I went to Well, like I said, I've been working around the trucks, and I knew odds and ends. You know, I was not a full-fledged mechanic, but I could do pretty good. And
Well, let's face it, those engines were pretty simple.
the what?
Those engines were pretty simple.
Oh, everything was.
Yes.
No self-starter or nothing. You
No.
know what I mean? Everything was crank. You know.
Uh-huh.
And then so Anton wanted to know if I go to work for him.
Were they a car dealer then?
Yeah.
They were.
Oh, they had just started. He done well. The Chevrolets, boys, sold like hotcakes. So boy, oh boy.
How much did you have to pay for a car then?
Well, I bought one. Paid that was later. Yet that was after you were born in 1929. I bought this car. Paid $735 for it.
And how much was that a month?
$35 a month. And I'll tell you, I financed it for 12 months after you. But anyway, so that worked out fine, and I worked for him for about 2 years, I guess. And besides keeping the chickens going.
Oh,
And I took that money that I paid my feed bill with the damn thing, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But then what happened? I was over to your mother's people, and they said, yeah, and then I came to work, yeah, your mother's father, he worked for Horse Nursery, if you ever heard of that.
You showed it to me in Wading River.
Yeah, in Wading River.
Yes.
So, sure enough,
Did you meet her father before you met her?
oh no.
No?
No, I met her through Carlson. He used to drive for Herb Reeves, you know, Bob Carlson, and he was taken to Saudi Arabia.
That was much later. That was what, during,
It was during the war.
yeah, during World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he died over there. You know, he got some sort of a fever, and he died. But it's through him I met your mother. Because he was married to Lucy.
He married Lucy, yeah.
And
So then, after you got married, that was 1927, you said?
Yeah.
Now, how long was it? Then what'd you do? You worked?
Huh?
Did you work on? Did you work for Brown at that
no,
time?
that was way later.
That was later.
Way later. Oh yeah. The other was, cause I always had a job. I never no problem there, you know.
What was you making a month?
I worked for Herb Reeves for $45 a month. And I threatened to leave and go to Chicago, you know, with my brother, and he raised me to $65 a month.
Now, how many days a week did you have to work?
Well, I worked every day, including Sundays,
How many hours a day?
whatever it took. There's no set hours. And well, of course, when I stayed to Herb Reeves in the house there, then of course, I was there all the time, you know what I mean. Not only that, if they wanted to go to work, go somewhere else on a Sunday, he asked me, would you please take us such a place? And Morena, she used to be my teacher, you know, she taught me English. I had an English class every day, at a certain time. Well, she used to pack a lunch, and we used to take off. All over Middle Island, you name it, we were there, you know. And you'd be surprised how many things I learned. And with Herb Reeves, he used to take me East Hampton, and all the way up there, Montauk Point. And he had cattle out there on Montauk Point, you know. He used to take them up there in the spring of the year, early, well, in the spring, and then leave them there all summer, you know, for grazing in Montauk. And in East Hampton, oh, he had friends all over the place, you know. Of course, he used to get in the truck and visit all the people that he knew. And everybody bought something from him because and not only, he had a truck full of stuff, you know, all kinds of stuff.
What do you mean, things to eat?
No. Things to sell, you know, you buy out of hardware stores
Oh,
and
I
stuff
see.
like that.
Like kerosene stoves
Yeah,
and
anything,
lamps.
anything you wanted, or you took orders if you didn't have it.
Did they have electric when you came to Herb-Reeves?
Electric, oh yeah.
They had electric.
Oh, sure.
Did they have bathrooms in the house?
Yeah, well, we didn't have it outdoors now, but Herb himself, they had bathroom, yeah.
Oh, they did.
So I was taken in there, well, of course, like I say, the women, they thought I was aces. But I gave as much as I took, you know what I mean? Like I say, I used to take Sunday off. But I devoted that day to them, not to me, myself.
Well, you didn't know anybody.
I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
And they wanted to know if I'd taken such and such a place. I said, sure, why not?
Sure, yeah.
And no matter where he went, if they went to Pacho, he'd come back. He had underclothes for me, they had shirts for me, they had other things that.
They were like mothers, huh?
Oh,
Yeah.
you never saw anything like it.
Yeah.
And that was worth a lot to me.
Oh, sure. Listen, having people care about you means a lot.
And boy, I'll tell you, they were some good to me, believe me. And so that's the way I felt.
So,
My life has been guided. The head can't help but call it anything else. I didn't know about these things, but everything fell into place. It was unbelievable. When I look back on my life, I says, never could I ever do this thing by myself. Never.
so now, how long did you sell your chicken farm?
Yeah, I sold it. A fellow named Watson bought it. So, you know the girl that had a beauty shop in East
Fran
Point?
Watson?
Yeah.
What was that, her in-laws that bought that?
That
Was
was
his
her
father?
father.
His father?
His father.
Uh-huh.
So,
Did you feel bad when you sold that?
not necessarily. Oh yeah, and then of course I got to go. Your mother and he got married, and of course. What was I going to say now?
Well, now you sold the chicken farm. Did Mama live on the chicken farm?
Yeah, oh yes. She lived in the 2 rooms
Oh, yeah.
for a while there, you know.
Yeah. You mean you brought your bride over there?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, that was something.
It's amazing what love will do.
Yeah.
And how long did you live in there after you were married?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe a year.
Uh-huh. And
then I sold that place. Oh yeah, and what happened? there was a private estate, not too far from where I lived before. And I think I showed it to you.
In Wading River.
Had a pond in front.
Yeah.
And I went, and I'm telling you,
What was it? You were a chauffeur?
I was a chauffeur, yeah.
How long did you work
I was
there?
About 2 years.
2 years.
And I was a caretaker, I was a chauffeur, I was a handyman, I was everything wrapped into one, you know.
Yeah.
And he was a sculptor. You know what a sculpture is?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, he makes statues and stuff like that. He was Italian, and he really was very good at what he was doing. So
Now, when did you go to Brown's? When you left him?
oh no, this was years later.
Well, you said I was born in 1929. Now, this was 27. You got married.
Yeah.
So that was 2 years that you worked for him.
Well,
And I was born on Brown's farm.
Yeah. Well, that was right after there. Yeah, that's right too.
When did you go for Brown's? It was.
I went from that place there to Brown's. Did I? I don't seem to remember. But I got that job on the private estate, and he sold that place. That's what happened. And did I move to next? I think I did go to Brown's. It was on a duck farm. I was over there looking for a job, and on a duck farm, and
Were the duck farms big then?
oh yeah, a lot more than it was later. Yeah. I remember Chinoma. You know, when Chinoma lived right next to Chichester.
On Bay Avenue?
Yeah, and he said that he raised 20,000 ducks and he made $20,000. Made $1 a duck. Can you imagine? $20,000, and that was a lot of money in those days.
Well, don't forget now he had to pay feed out of that.
Oh yeah, but
so it wasn't clear.
Yeah, no, of course not. It was not clear, but nevertheless, in the 8 weeks you raise the duck, you know.
So now, when you went to Brown's, you got your house and your a salary.
That's it. I got a salary. I got a house to live in, and I had a beautiful big garden in the back there, and all that duck manure. I'm telling you, and you would never believe there was that much manure.
So now, how much did you make a month then?
$140 a month.
Plus your house.
That's the house.
Did you have to pay your own electric and everything?
No, he paid everything.
Oh.
All expenses.
The heat and everything?
No. Expenses.
Well, you really felt like you had stepped up in the world.
Oh, I'm telling you. I was doing all right, believe me.
Now, how many years did you work for him before you you bought the property in Santa Merchants?
Let me see now. I think I started. I always wanted land, you know. I always wanted land. And I bought that land when I was working for Brown. I mean, yeah, working for Brown. And I didn't pay for it, but I paid so much a month. No interest or anything like that, just to pay so much.
Now, did you get that on tax sale, or did you,
No, not that.
No?
Not that. That was bought from Miller and Herman. They owned that land together there. And little by little, I bought 2 acres where the plant is now, way straight back. Because that was cut up in parcels, lots or plots or whatever you may call them, they were 100 by, most of them was 100-foot front, And then I kept buying and buying, and little by little, and then the house on the corner there where Eva Klein lives now, I bought that.
but that was after you were in business, wasn't it? Isn't that when you started the rendering plant?
Yeah, that's right too, yeah.
Now,
that was very late.
Now, you were working for Brown, and you were coming up and cutting the trees down, and who helped build your house?
What?
Who built the house on Herman Avenue?
Tony did.
Tony built that house?
Oh, sure. Tony, that's when Tony come back to Canada.
Uh-huh.
He was getting sick and tired of Norway, and he couldn't make a living there, so and then he couldn't get into the United States anymore because of the emigration,
When did they start that?
The emigration?
Yeah.
Oh, hell, it's always, there's such a demand of leaving Europe and coming over to this side, that they had to pass all kinds of immigration laws. And of course the first thing they stopped was at one time was so many a year, could come into this country, until we finally stopped it altogether.
As a child, I would sit with my dad. He would talk of Norway, his childhood, and how he had dreamed of coming to America. My dad had great respect for his father, his grandfather, and talked with love of his mother. He not only worked hard, but he had great ambitions. He always felt he had a driving force watching over him and guiding him. He came to Long Island with a few dollars in his pocket and not knowing English. From that young man with no friends or family to help him, he ventured into a new world. He captured his American dream, but never felt it would be to this extent. It was more than he had hoped for in the country he adopted and called himself proudly an American. He loved his children and gave to them a courage, strength, and love of God. How proud we are to call him our dad.